Alright y'all, this is my process of how I take my toy tank and put it in a desert scene in Blender. So I got me some green screen footage, and I've just edited that down, and I'm just going to bring that on into Blender in the compositing tab. I got my compositor on the bottom and an image editor on the top. And I'm just going to change the frame on the image to 33 because that's the amount of frames I have in my footage. I'm going to Control-Shift-Click on that with the Node Wrangler enabled to add a viewer node so we can see it. And up here on the image editor, I'm going to change this to viewer node so I can see it up here without using the backdrop in the compositor. I'm going to get rid of that composite node real quick and add it back later just to declutter the workspace and add a key in node. And for this key color, I want to grab that color on the backdrop. So I'm just going to select that and use the eyedropper to pick a color. And then I'm just going to reconnect my key node to the viewer. And we can see it's taken away most of that green, but we still got this weird color in the background. Alright, I'm just going to mask that out. So up here at the top, I'm going to go from view and then do the mask. And then go up here and press new to add a new mask. And you Control-Click to just add these little points. And I'm just going to draw around this. I'm going to go back to view and add a mask node from the input menu and select the mask and then add an invert color. That way it'll invert this mask and mask out everything else. I'm going to come up here and add a color spill node and connect that image up to it. And then I'm just going to Control-Shift-Click so we can put that in the viewer node. And I'm just going to adjust these colors. And if we use the matte and hook that up to the viewer node, we can see that we got all this noise around the tank. I want to get rid of that as much as possible, so I'm just going to adjust some of these settings to clip out some of that. I'm going to add a set alpha here and hook up the color spill to the image and then the matte to the alpha. I'm going to check the unspill and then just adjust these colors just to get like a neutral color. And if you're in Blender 4.4, this is going to look different, but I'm in 4.3. That's why it still looks like this. I'm just going to adjust these just to get rid of as much excess color around the tank as possible. I'm going to add in an in-paint node, and I'm going to add a dilate erode, and I'm also going to Shift-D to duplicate that set alpha. I'm going to hook it up like this. I'm going to play around with these values. I'm going to change the first set alpha node here to replace alpha. And I'm just going to play around with some of these values. On the in-paint node, I'm just going to increase this to a really high number, like 200. And on this distance, I'm just going to decrease that to like a -2 or -3. And it gets rid of most of that little white edge around the tank. And I don't care if this is too perfect because my green screen footage wasn't perfect. Now we need that composite node back in order to render this, so I'm going to Shift-A and search for it under the output and hook that image back up to the image. And when you render this, you want to make sure that your frame range is the amount of frames. That way you're only going to render the amount of footage you need. I'm just going to render this as an image sequence, but you can also render it out as a movie. Alright, now I'm in my Blender project that I had for my shed build time lapse. I'm just going to go to the backyard, and over here I had these like sand dune area with some dust effects, so I'm just going to use that for my background. I'm going to let it render out in the viewport and then just take me a screenshot once I'm done. And then we'll import this into a Blender video editing file. Alright, now I'm in GIMP, and I'm just going to create another one. I got 1920 by 1080. And I got me the background as transparent, so that way I'm going to add these little dust effects over it. I got a black background now so you can see it though, but I'm just going to use like a smoke brush and just splotch out some dust here and there. And make sure the opacity is set down. That way you can still see through the dustiness when you add this over. Because I'm going to add this over the top of my image sequence of my tank. That way we got some dust on the top. It's a little bit quicker, or a lot quicker in my case because I have a cheap computer, than to just add the effect in Blender and render the animation using a particle system or some junk like that. So I'm just going to do the cheap way and go with the GIMP. So now I have imported my image sequence, and I'm just going to scale this down, and over here on the transform, click and drag down to add a keyframe on the first frame after you've scaled it, and I got the position and the scale keyframed. And then on the last frame, I'm just going to go ahead and scale it down and move it, and then just click all those buttons over there, so that way we got us a little animation. Now it looks like our tank's moving through our scene. Alright, so if you need to readjust these keyframes, if you Shift Alt I while you're hovering your mouse over any of those values, it'll reset all those and take away all the keyframes. So if you need to redo your whole animation, you can. I did extend this footage out and make it a little bit slower, so I had to end up doing that. And I'm just adjusting these how it needs to be for my scene. I'm going to come up over here and go to the graph editor, because the default curves make it ease in slow and ease out slow. So I want these to be more linear. So I'm just going to drag all these handles. And if you redo your animation and adjust it, you'll have to come back in the graph editor and adjust those again. Alright, so here's what I got so far. Just adjust these. Alright, that's going to be good enough for now. So what I want to do is add an image. And then I'm just going to go find that dust that I made in GIMP and extend the duration out. And what I'm going to do is scale it up a little bit, and then grab it on the x-axis and just drag it on over, and then add a keyframe on the position X over here. And then at the end frame, I'm just going to drag that all the way over, so that way we got our dust moving across our screen. I'm going to do that for the second dust as well. Scale it up and move it over, so that way it just looks like we got some dust moving across our scene. It gives us a little bit of depth really quick without having to wait on Blender to render this particle systems and stuff. So as you can see, I got this black in here so you can see the animation. Here we go. This is how I did my first green screen movie project in Blender. Thanks for watching.